Three thinking errors are running silently in your brain right now, and according to peer-reviewed behavioral research, they are the primary reason intelligent, hardworking professionals plateau years before they should. Not laziness, not bad luck, not the economy. Specific, named, measurable cognitive bugs. By the end of this video, you will have a 3-step decision audit protocol that takes under 10 minutes and is designed to neutralize all three before your next career-defining meeting. This is not a motivational breakdown. There will be no call to believe in yourself. What follows is a cognitive science briefing, the same caliber of analysis used in behavioral economics research at institutions like Stanford and MIT, translated into something you can actually use today. 3 biases, 3 brain regions, and 1 field-ready protocol. Stay through to the end, because the third bias is the one almost nobody talks about, and it is the one most likely to be shaping your career trajectory right now without your awareness. Here is the uncomfortable premise. The higher your cognitive ability, the more susceptible you are to these 3 biases. This is not a paradox, it is a documented finding. Highly intelligent individuals are better at constructing post hoc justifications for decisions already made by emotional brain regions. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational planning, is frequently overruled by the amygdala and the basal ganglia before you are even conscious a decision is being made. Research from the University of Edinburgh, published in the journal Intelligence, found that higher IQ scores correlate with greater susceptibility to certain reasoning biases, specifically the ones involving overconfidence and loss aversion. The professionals losing the most ground to these biases are not the distracted or the undisciplined. They are the sharp ones, the ones who are certain they are thinking clearly. Bias 1. The sunk cost fallacy, specifically the form it takes inside a career, which is far more corrosive than the textbook definition suggests. Most people understand the basic version. You keep watching a bad movie because you already paid for the ticket. But inside a professional context, this bias operates at a systemic level. It is why you stay in a role that stopped developing you 18 months ago. It is why you keep investing energy into a strategy your team has privately acknowledged is not working. It is why the years spent in a direction become the primary argument for continuing in that direction. The brain region responsible is the orbitofrontal cortex, which integrates emotional memory with decision-making. When it detects prior investment, time, identity, status, it generates a threat signal that the rational brain interprets as evidence the path is worth continuing. Kahneman and Tversky's foundational 1979 research on prospect theory demonstrated that losses are psychologically weighted roughly twice as heavily as equivalent gains. The performance consequence of this is precise. A 2019 analysis in the Journal of Behavioral Decision-Making found that professionals under the influence of sunk cost reasoning make resource allocation errors that cost them an average of 11 weeks of productive output per year. That is not a metaphor. That is nearly a quarter of your working year quietly redirected toward protecting past decisions instead of building future ones. The takeaway is actionable and takes 4 minutes. Before any major resource commitment, time, money, political capital, run a single-sentence audit. If you had 0 prior investment in this path, would you choose it today based only on where it leads from here? If the answer is no, the sunk cost spiral is already active. The average professional makes 35,000 decisions per day. Research from Cornell University puts that number specifically at 226 decisions about food alone. The cognitive load is not trivial, and 3 of those 35,000 decisions are silently running your career trajectory. Bias 2. The Dunning-Kruger Effect, but not the version you have probably heard about. The standard framing suggests that low-skill individuals overestimate their abilities. That is true, but it is not the part of this research that should concern you. The part that concerns you is what Dunning-Kruger found about high-skill individuals. They consistently underestimate their relative competence compared to peers, and simultaneously overestimate the difficulty of tasks they have already mastered. The result is a specific professional pattern. You discount your own expertise in rooms where it is genuinely rare. You underprice your time, under-negotiate your compensation, and over-defer to peers who carry confidence more than capability. The brain region responsible here is the anterior insular cortex, which processes social comparison and self-referential thought. When this region is chronically miscalibrated, which stress and overwork accelerate, it generates a persistent low-grade signal of inadequacy that feels like humility but functions as a performance ceiling. The performance consequence is direct. A 2021 Harvard Business Review analysis found that professionals who chronically undervalue their demonstrated competence are 40% less likely to pursue stretch roles, roles that, on average, represent the single highest leverage career acceleration event available. That 40% gap compounds over a decade into a measurable salary and title differential that averages $180,000 in cumulative earnings. The takeaway is a calibration exercise. Once per week, list 3 things you did in the past 7 days that someone with less domain experience could not have done. Not to inflate your ego. To recalibrate the anterior insular cortex with accurate data. This is not affirmation. It is neural retraining using factual evidence. A 2020 McKinsey study found that proximity to senior leadership, not performance scores, accounts for 37% of promotion decisions in large organizations. 37%. That means over a third of your career advancement is determined not by what you do, but by who physically sees you doing it. Bias 3. Proximity bias, and specifically the internal cognitive distortion it creates in your own career strategy. Most professionals understand that being seen matters. What they do not account for is the bias running inside their own heads. The false belief that quality of work is more visible than it actually is, and that political visibility is somehow beneath them. This is not a character flaw. It is a documented cognitive error called the illusion of transparency. The well-researched tendency of the human brain to overestimate how apparent your internal states, efforts, and competencies are to others. Your brain assumes the work speaks for itself because to you it is loud. To everyone else in your organization, it is largely silent. The responsible neural mechanism is the medial prefrontal cortex, the region governing self-other distinction. When it is running the illusion of transparency, it systematically underestimates the gap between your internal experience of your own output and what actually registers in the minds of the people making decisions about your career. The performance consequence. A Stanford Graduate School of Business study found that high performers who scored in the bottom quartile for strategic visibility received promotion consideration at a rate 52% lower than peers with equivalent performance reviews. Half the rate. Not because they were less skilled, because their skills were invisible to decision makers. The takeaway is a weekly visibility protocol. Identify one piece of work per week that a decision maker in your organization does not know you produced, and create one legitimate touchpoint, a summary email, a meeting mention, a Slack update that puts it into their field of awareness, not self-promotion. Visibility engineering. It takes 7 minutes and it compounds. Here is what connects all 3 biases. They do not feel like errors. The sunk cost spiral feels like loyalty. The competence illusion feels like humility. The visibility blind spot feels like integrity. Your brain has named all 3 of its most costly bugs as virtues. And this is the part promised at the start. The reason these biases survive intact inside the minds of highly intelligent professionals for years, sometimes entire careers, without detection. They are not visible in real time. They only reveal themselves in retrospect, often when the cost has already been paid. The 2017 cognitive architecture research from Princeton's neuroscience program established that the prefrontal cortex, your rational override system, requires a deliberate metacognitive trigger to engage with decisions already framed emotionally. Without that trigger, the bias runs undetected. That trigger is the decision audit protocol. 3 questions, 1 per bias. Run them before any significant professional decision. Question 1 targets the sunk cost spiral. If you started this today with 0 prior history, would you still choose it? Question 2 targets the competence illusion. Name one specific demonstrated skill this decision requires that fewer than 20% of your peers possess. Anchor yourself in documented evidence before proceeding. Question 3 targets the visibility blind spot. Who needs to know about this decision or its outcome, and what is the one action that puts it in front of them? The entire protocol takes between 7 and 10 minutes. The research basis is not motivational theory. It is metacognitive interrupt research, published in Psychological Science in 2020, which found that structured pre-decision audits reduce bias-driven errors by 31% in professional decision-making contexts. That is the loop from the beginning of this video now closed. The reason these biases survive is not because you are unaware of cognitive biases in general. It is because awareness without a protocol is not a tool, it is trivia. The protocol converts awareness into architecture. Here is a specific reflection worth dropping in the comments. Of the 3 biases covered, the sunk cost spiral, the competence illusion, and the visibility blind spot, name the one that is most active in your professional life right now. Not the most interesting one, the most active one. The responses to this question consistently reveal which of these 3 is most underestimated by high performers. And the pattern in this channel's comment section is worth reading. If this briefing was useful, the next video on this channel goes one level deeper. It covers the specific neural mechanism behind decision fatigue and delivers a 9-minute energy architecture protocol that eliminates the afternoon cognitive crash that costs the average professional 2.5 hours of quality output per day. No supplements, no lifestyle overhaul, just the one structural shift that changes when your best thinking happens. Subscribe so that video reaches you when it publishes. Growth Daily exists for one reason: to give time-scarce professionals the research-backed liver that actually moves the needle, explained in under 12 minutes before their next meeting.